Are you a real estate investor looking to elevate your income, freedom, and lifestyle? If so, optimize your daily performance by downloading our free guide, Raising the Bar, 5 Steps to Elevate Your Habits at elevatepod.com. In this guide, created by yours truly, you'll learn why you do what you do, how to easily institute cues in your environment to trigger desired behavior, directly applicable steps to create a fulfilling future, and much more. Get your free copy now at elevatepod.com and kickstart your new habits today. Your future self will thank you.
Welcome to Elevate, the masterclass where we dissect the elements of exceptional achievement and lifestyle design with a focus on personal growth and real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here, and I am blessed and grateful to be sitting with Helen Chong today, one of the most inspiring people that I know and one of the nicest people that I've ever met, and someone who really lives what she preaches every single day. So I'm so excited about this conversation with Helen Chong. Today, you are going to learn about the resourcefulness mindset. You're going to learn about how you can apply the immigrant mindset to your life, to your business, to your investing, to your own perseverance. You're going to learn how to expand your comfort zone, how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You're going to learn about overcoming adversity, because guess what? If we're going to be successful investors, there's going to be a tremendous amount of adversity on our path. If we're going to develop fulfillment in our life, we're going to have to persevere to make that happen. You're also going to learn about the power of reflection, of self-reflection, and how that can help you grow even further in your life. You're also going to learn about some of the most important decisions that you need to make as a real estate investor to take your portfolio to the next level. Today's conversation, today's episode is outstanding. Elevate Podcast is all about mindset, mind expansion, and personal development for high-performing real estate investors. I'm your host, Tyler Chesser, and I'm a professional real estate investor and high-performance coach. It is my job to decode the stories, habits, and multifaceted expertise of world-class investors and other experts to help you elevate your performance and lifestyle. Are you ready to take it to another level? It is time. Let's raise the bar today. And before we dive into this episode, thank you so much for listening to Elevate Podcast. It is so important to us that we serve you and we add value to you. So I just really appreciate you being here. And I want to encourage you to give us a rating, review, and subscribe or follow Elevate Podcast and wherever it is that you listen or follow podcasts, because really, ultimately, the only way that we can continue to grow is if you stick around. And we love to have the opportunity of sharing and adding value to you on time and time again. We release 2 episodes a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And by the way, the fee for listening is just to pay it forward. Share this with a friend, share this with your network on social media, through a text message, through an email, or word of mouth. We just ask that you share this one time. If you've already done that in the past, thank you so much for listening today. We just ask that you do that one more time. And the only way that we can grow is if we earn the power of your introductions. And one introduction at a time is really all that we ask. And it's extremely, extremely valuable for us. And we just really appreciate that. By the way, we appreciate everybody who leaves reviews as well. It's very important for us. And it's important for the success and the future of us to be able to continue to add value to you. So all of those asks from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate that. And with all that said, I want to introduce you to Helen Chong, who is the founder of Haylen Group in San Jose, dedicated to helping clients build their real estate portfolio from residential and commercial real estate sales. She has over 16 years of real estate experience as a real estate agent, mentor, as well as a real estate investor. Prior to her real estate career, she was an analyst at a pension consulting firm in Santa Monica. Helen Chong is considered a real estate industry leader by serving in many real estate organizations, which includes being on the board of Santa Clara County Association of Realtors from 2017 to 2019. In 2020 and 2021, she has served as the president of the Northern California chapter of CCIM, which is a certified commercial investment member. She is also the part of the 2020 JWL Leadership Academy, 2021 CCIM Institute's International Activities Committee member, as well as the 2022 first regional vice president for 10 Western region chapters of the CCIM Institute. And she is an award-winning professional. She is decorated beyond belief, but she's someone who has overcome tremendous odds in her life. to come to the United States from Hong Kong, and really to bring her family full circle as well. And it's such an inspiring story today. It's such an inspiring life that she's lived, and an example that she's set. So please, without further ado, please enjoy this amazing conversation with Helen Chong. Helen Chong, wow. Welcome to Elevate. How are you?
I am doing awesome, especially right after New Year. I'm doing really great. Very pumped right now.
I know, same here. It was really, actually, I could feel it when we were talking before the episode today. You mentioned how rested you were, which is a kind of a rare occurrence in your world. I know you're such a high performer. You're so driven. You're passionate about what you do, but you do have this aura of like, wow, I feel relaxed now. I feel ready to go. Is that kind of how you're feeling?
I feel refreshed. And I think all of us really need that. I'm one of those people don't really know how to stop. Even during the break, I'm still doing stuff, but it's just not like really high stress, but it's something relaxing with my family. And then we find projects to do. So it's really nice to have that kind of change of scenery.
I totally agree. And I was talking to my business partner yesterday, and he felt that way too. He's just like you, where he's go, 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 go. But I shared with him something that Rich Diviney, the Navy SEAL, shared with me. And he shared with me, and he really made this stick out to me, how important recovery is. And we were in Costa Rica on a mastermind retreat. And I told him, hey, I've got a few meetings tomorrow and the next day, and we're going to do Zoom, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And he's like, no, after this retreat is over, you need to pull it back. You need to rest, relax, and recover, because you're going to be so much better when you come back. And it really reminds me about, the new year time and taking a little step back and getting a little recovery and thinking about how much better can we be when we come back. And I feel like that's where you are now.
Yeah. And, usually during the break, we go on vacation. And then when you're on vacation, really not really vacation, especially when you have kids. So you're tired by the time you come back. But this time, not doing anything, just staying home. And we did like a very fancy home dinner, it's like, and start baking stuff, and with the kids, enjoying that family life. And then you remind yourself, what's the most important thing for you? Like all that hard work, that's what you really want to do, is to enjoy your time with your families.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, what's most important? And sometimes we have to take a step back and, look above the trees, right? Look and see the forest, and like, what's the purpose of all of this? And it's probably for family. It's probably for enjoyment, fulfillment, however you define fulfillment. But Helen, I'm excited about our conversation today, because I think we're going to learn so much about you and your story, and from your story, and how we can take things to the next level ourselves, so that we can live a more fulfilling life, so that we can understand what does freedom really mean to us. Mm-hmm. And, but before we dive into that, Helen, if you were to describe yourself in the way that the people that know you best would describe you, what would they say about Helen Chong?
Work too hard, too driven, always want to be perfect on everything. It almost sounds negative. It's like positive words, but almost kind of negative in a way. It's like, oh, too much of this. But I think it's funny. Every time we say Happy New Year, my families will always say, don't work too hard this year. Okay. And it's like, as if this is a bad thing. So, I think that's generally what my family and friends would describe me.
That's really interesting. And it's so funny, because the first time I met you, I noticed that about you, is that you have a strong desire for maybe not necessarily perfection, but for greatness and for diligence and for going the extra mile. So where did that come from? I mean, I know we're going to talk a little bit about your story, your backstory, and where you came from and so forth, but where did that diligence come from? I'm just curious.
I always think that if you're going to try to do something, why not make the best effort out of it, right? Why would you want to show people half of your effort? And it's very transparent. People can tell right away. And I could tell when people give me like 50% of their effort. And I'm just like, it drives me crazy. And I think a lot of it comes from my mom. My mom is a hard worker. Every time, like holiday, she would make sure everything is prepared to perfection, inviting all these family and friends, decorations to food, how it tastes, and how we dress when our friends come over. And she just, even like every morning when we make our bed, the sheet has to be tightened up and make sure it's flat. And until until now, I have to make my bed. And then if my kids make their bed and there's a little wrinkle, it drives me nuts. Like, no, you have to pull it straight. But that's really, I feel like it's where I observe my mom, and she's such an amazing entrepreneur, business owner, where she started her career when she was 47 years old.
Wow.
So older than where I am right now, but not too far from me. She became very successful, and now she's 75. She's still working.
That's so cool. That is amazing. And what it makes me think of, and this philosophy has stood out to me so deeply over the past few years, especially, is that how you do anything is how you do everything. Yes. And you talked about making your bed and being cognizant of the wrinkles, and, that spills over into so many other areas. And the way that you treat yourself, I think, spills over into how you treat other people, how you treat your business, how you treat your employees, how you treat your clients, how you treat your partners. And I think that's really, really amazing and really profound. But talk to me a little bit about your backstory, because it's remarkable. It's really amazing. I mean, thinking about growing up in Hong Kong, immigrating, obviously to one country and then to the United States. Talk a little bit about that, because I think there's a lot to be learned about it, but really give the listeners a sense of, what life was like growing up and why you made those decisions and so forth.
I think when people think about Hong Kong, it's always like, oh, it's a very developed, well, it's not a country, but developed city. However, when we were growing up, we went from a very comfortable life to a very difficult life, where it just literally tore our families apart into different countries. My parents had to go back to Indonesia to start their career, like I said, 47 years old, all over again. And we lost all our money because our family friends actually pretty much stole our money. And so we were being chased down by landlords asking for rent. And then I was living by myself at home at the age of 16 until I couldn't do it anymore. I felt like I needed to be with my parents. And then I moved myself to Indonesia to be with them, and decided that, hey, I'm just going to help you guys out to rebuild your business, which was a restaurant business at the time. And living in the third world, from a very developed city to a third world country in Indonesia, and not a big city in Indonesia. It was a small town. It was just like you lived in two different worlds. And then you realize, like, I can do so much more. I could have just stayed in this small town in Indonesia and continued to help my parents. And my parents actually said, like, it's okay, stay here, help us out. And you can do whatever you want to do here because it's so cheap. Everything's so cheap. We were selling fried rice for 50 cents a plate. And life could be easy, and just find somebody rich to marry to, and then your life is set. That's like a typical Asian girl mentality back then. And then I was just like, no way, there's so much more. There's so much more in this world I want to explore. Never been to the United States, but I want to come here because that's all we see on TV, on magazine. One funny story is that I used to look at the magazine and I just talked to the people, like a Caucasian person on the magazine. It's like, trying to speak English to this person, and on the magazine, it's like, I really want to come over. And but anyhow, so I basically applied everything myself. And then one day I just announced to my parents, hey, I'm going to the United States. I'm going to start my life all over again. And hopefully one day I'll be successful and I can bring you guys over and we can be one happy family again.
Wow. How old were you when you decided to go to the US?
18. So, well, when I decided, it was 17, but then when I actually made it here, I just turned 18.
Okay. So you went to Indonesia when you were 16, right? Mm-hmm. So you spent almost 2 years there. And then you said, look, no way, there's so much more. And that's such an interesting thought process that you had as well, is that, you were surrounded by people who maybe were okay with their circumstances, or maybe they were okay with that lifestyle, but there was something in you that was speaking to you that said, no, there's much more. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's like, I think everybody has a dream and you have a goal and you have a way of thinking your life should be different. Although it's being presented to you that, your parents have obviously some dreams for you too, but my parents, they're one of those, like, it's okay, you don't have to go to school, just work hard and just be happy where you are. And in a very Asian culture way, my dad was the one to always say, be humble. Don't always try to go for something that is too far-fetched. And he always said, like, if you don't have such a big head, don't wear such a big hat. That's like, there was a Chinese way of saying it too. And it's like, but now I would say, like, why wouldn't you want to dream bigger? Why wouldn't you want to shoot for something really outrageous? And then hopefully you can hit somewhere, halfway there. And at least it's still a goal that you can go for. I don't know what's in me that caused me to want more, even though that's how I was raised. But I'm so happy I made that move. It was so difficult, coming here alone with no financial support and not knowing the language, not knowing the culture. Everything is just new. I didn't even know how to cross the street by looking at the traffic light. But
wow.
But it is the best decision I've ever made. And that really life-changing for me.
So you embark upon this journey, right? So give me a sense of, where did you start? Did you start in Los Angeles, correct?
Yes, I did. I remember that moment as soon as we got out of the plane. Somehow we weren't going into the airport right away. We actually landed, we walked down onto the tarmac, and then I just like, wow, the weather here is so nice. The sunshine is amazing.
Wow. So that was the first step. So you get off the plane and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really becoming my reality here. I'm here. But then you're like, I'm sure you're thinking, well, I don't have any money. I don't understand this culture. I don't understand the language, right?
Yes.
So give me a sense. Where did you start? Where did you begin?
I mean, I did have some basic of learning English, obviously from Hong Kong, but we never really spoke. We just had to learn how to read and write. And also we learned British English, not US English.
Okay. Yeah.
And the culture is definitely a big shock for me. I honestly didn't really know how to start. I had a cousin here already. He tried to help me as much as he could for 2 weeks. But you pretty much have to navigate everything yourself, go walk down the street, walk to the school, ask questions, constantly asking questions, and just try it. If you don't do anything, you're not going to move forward. All the way from trying to learn how to pick up a payphone, how do you dial that number, how to find a roommate. Yeah, it's just constantly asking questions. Like asking questions to random people. I
feel like that's a delineation that many investors or entrepreneurs still have to do today, no matter where you are on that scale. It's asking questions. But you talked about the humility earlier of Asian culture. Be humble. I think it's, in some ways it's like, maybe that holds people back, but in other ways there's a lot of wisdom in that. It's like, be humble and ask questions. You had no choice but to ask questions in this circumstance in many regards. And many people maybe were like, what is this woman talking about? I mean, this is so basic.
Gosh,
you needed to start from the beginning.
I had asked questions as stupid as like, how do you turn on the computer? And then the boy next to me is like, what?
Wow. So you landed, you get your feet underneath you. How long did it take you to get kind of stabilized to a certain point where you had a place and all? I mean, did you even have a place to live when you landed? No.
Wow. I just knew that I had a budget in my mind, and then how to, like how much I can spend on an apartment. I've worked out with my parents, like, they working in a third world country in a small town, really didn't make any money at all. I was like, don't worry about it. I don't want my decision to put a burden on you guys, but being parents, how can you not, right? I was like, I need to find something to work. I need to make money. And I told myself, as long as I'm not going to die, I'm going to be okay. I will find a way. I'm sure I can do any kind of work. I don't know, pick up trash or do some kind of chores for somebody and get a little cash here and there. So that's what I did. It's like within 2 weeks, I already have found a job where I can make a little bit money, and I'm talking about just $200-$300 a month. And then I have worked up to 3 jobs at a time. So yeah, and then going to school, starting to meet new friends, and it's just, yeah, it's an experience. Now that I think back, if you ask me to do that now, I'd probably be like, I don't think I can do that. But when you had nothing, and when you're young, and sometimes being ignorant is a good thing because you just didn't know, right? I didn't know how dangerous that could have been. How many times that I think back now, it's like, wow, that would have been if I have stepped towards let's say a little more left or a little more right, I could have ruined my life forever. And
Wow.
but luckily I had great people around me. I met really good people. I've met really bad people as well, but these are all learning experiences.
Yeah. And lucky for you and lucky for so many others, including your children, your husband, your clients, this amazing network and the people that you've impacted over the years since then. I mean, lucky for all of us that you had the courage to be able to go down this path. And maybe you were a little bit ignorant, right? I think there's a little bit of, hey, ignorance may be bliss in terms of starting businesses, but these type of journeys, I mean, even much more so. You really kind of alluded to the fact of, hey, I will find a way. And there was almost a mindset of resourcefulness, like I'll do whatever it takes to make it, to be successful, and to just really not necessarily to thrive, but just to survive at that point in time. Could you talk a little bit about that unique mindset that you had at that point in time that carried you through?
I think that resourcefulness is key to anyone want to be successful. It's until today, it still bugs me when somebody said like, oh, it can't be done. I was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it cannot be done. It's even now our children at school, elementary school, I'm talking about first grade, they learn about growth mindset. They said, I can't do it. Don't say I can't do it. Say I can do it. I cannot do it yet. And always think about a solution. I always find ways. I just think that, especially nowadays, we have internet, the resource out there is so vast, so much. There's no way you cannot do anything if you are willing to put in the time and the effort. So I always say that if you want something, find a solution. Even go from us helping our clients, same thing. When there is always going to be a problem, an obstacle in front of you, but don't just present the obstacle. Don't just say that here, I have an obstacle in front of me, I cannot move anymore. Find a way to move it. Find a way to destroy this obstacle. There's always a way. But then if you didn't try, then I feel like you're not going to know what will happen behind that obstacle. That's like a road probably going to this most beautiful place, right? And you just have to go past that.
Hey guys, just a quick word from our sponsor, then we'll be right back to the show. This episode of Elevate is brought to you by CF Capital, a national real estate investment firm founded by myself and my business partner, Brian Flaherty. CF Capital's mission is to provide property investment and asset management solutions to help investors like you maximize their returns by investing in high-value multifamily communities. If you are looking for risk-adjusted alternative investments in quality apartment communities, are seeking tax-optimized cash flow with appreciation upside without all the hassles of management, you might benefit from learning more about investing alongside our team. You're invited to reach out and learn more about how you can invest with us by visiting cfcapllc.com. We're also currently offering a free ebook called The Bottom Line, 10 Ways to Increase Cash Flow in an Apartment Complex. Whether you're a new or experienced investor, we're confident you'll find massive value in this resource. So go get your free copy today at cfcapllc.com. And now, please enjoy the rest of the show. I love that. And, it just makes me think of, when you find a way, there's gifts in finding that way, right? You become more creative. You become, you develop a skill. You find maybe an alternative path that you would have never found if you didn't have to find a way. And so I almost think that the growth mindset allows us to find those new paths, to develop new skills, to develop as a human being. And really the challenges are what creates us. And to me, I think that's so, so valuable. So think about your path and your journey there. So you said you enrolled in school. Did you go to UCLA? Was that UCLA at that time?
No, I went to Santa Monica College first because it's cheaper.
Okay.
And I went there for a year and a half. I finished my studies rather quickly. Then I had half a year before I started UCLA. So that half a year I worked a lot, 7 days a week. I saved up enough money. Then I went back to visit my family and stay with them, so I didn't have to pay rent over here.
I love that. And then, so talk to me about your path then. So you started in pension fund. You were a pension fund analyst, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so you worked in that industry for a period of time. And I think you saw some things happening perhaps, and which allowed you, maybe said, all right, well, find a new way. Right. And so talk to me about what happened and then the path that took you to real estate.
So because I came here with no money, and of course, in the back of my mind, constantly thinking about like, how can I, have this financial security? That's literally the goal since the beginning, right? Went to Indonesia, and then I came here. It's like, I will find a way to make money. I'll find a way to give us financial security. Then after college, I graduated from college. I started a pension fund company, and that's supposedly where people, when they retire, they're going to have great pension funds and help them with their retirement. And then in 2002, that's when I see the internet bubble busted. And then I watched, literally, we were analyzing all these portfolios. Everything was just negative, like double digits number. And then I started meeting people who are like retiring that year. And they kept telling me like, yeah, I have like this much money in their retirement funds, and I lost 65%. I had a guy who told me, I'm 65, I'm retiring, I only have $150,000 left in my portfolio. He said he had almost $1 million before. And I just kept thinking to myself, holy cow, what if I, retire in the wrong year during the recession? What would happen then? So, and I felt like the stock market was just too much. I am allowing someone else to take control of my financials. I wasn't the one that running the companies. I'm just literally praying, like, give you the money and praying like, okay, you guys better do good. And my money will go up. So I wanted to take control back, and I started doing a lot of research again. And then I started learning about real estate. At the time, we talked about foreclosures. I remember this one website, I think it's foreclosures.com. I read up every single articles in there, printed them out and put it in a binder, read it. I did everything. I started going to free real estate seminars. I started going to look at properties, didn't have money. And I found a money partner to go out with me. So I just absolutely fell in love, but was still too afraid to take that route, because if you go into real estate, that means you don't have that stable paycheck, and you're going to have to go into this industry with no money. And the funny thing how life works is that I actually went back to Asia to spend my first Christmas with my family in 10 years. So I was very excited, but I couldn't come back due to a visa issue. I was not allowed to come back to the United States. And I was just like devastated, because I'm like, I built my life there. And then all of a sudden, because of this stupid visa, I couldn't come back.
Wow.
Yeah. And, but long story short is that we found a way to come back. I found a way to come back, and I just took that leap of faith. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to jump into real estate and start all over again. At that time, that's when I met my husband, and he was in the Marine, and he was going to war. His third tour is literally everything is kind of like, what's worse than him going to a war where he could have died, and I cannot risk just not having some money and start my life all over again. Right. So that's what I did. And then I jumped into real estate and started all over again.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the amount of adversity that you have overcome, and that you were overcoming then, and obviously you continue to do so now, but thinking about, wow, you had to find a way to come back to the country, and then you had to find a way to create income. You had to find a way to take back control of your own financial future, but you also recognize this bigger problem in that many people just allow their control of their own money or their own finances to be relinquished to someone else or to the control of someone else. And, I think that it's really powerful, and it's really interesting because most real estate investors, or most real estate entrepreneurs don't start in real estate, but they have this path that takes them there. And similarly for you, you saw this, it's like, well, this could be an opportunity for me to take back control. And you were like, well, wait a minute, but I don't have any money. And you found a way to bring a partner in, right? And then you found a way to overcome your fear, because you mentioned, well, wait a minute, I fell in love with the business. This is really interesting. It makes sense, but you were afraid. So how did you find a way to overcome that fear?
Find a way to overcome the fear. I don't even know how I overcame the fear, to be honest with you. It's kind of like, I always think that I'm not in the worst situation compared to other people. Yeah, it wasn't great. I didn't have a lot of money. You can have all this self-pity. And yes, I did. I would talk to myself like, gosh, why am I so unlucky? Why can't I ever break this and that? But at the same time, am I really the worst? I mean, the person in the worst situation? No. There are other people who are in a much worse situation. So what am I supposed to do? I got to do something about it and stop letting fear to stop myself. I remember I hear one thing from one of my real estate seminar. And the first thing I was doing is really changing my mindset. As mentioned, I was brought up being you can say a humility, right? But at the same time, because of that humility, I basically didn't have any self-confidence because I never said like, I'm good at something. I always have to say that, okay, I can be better. I'm not the best, this and that. So I started doing this mindset training at these real estate seminar, and then allowing myself to have more confidence, to be better. And one of the biggest thing for most people is that they're so comfortable doing the same thing over and over again and not trying new stuff. And when they have me visualize it, it's like every time, imagine you're living in a balloon or in a circle, and then every time you do something uncomfortable, basically you're stretching this area, right? You're stretching and making it bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden you feel like, I'm comfortable now. So I kind of started with that visualization, and then I was like, you're right. If I do one thing uncomfortable, next time I'm not going to feel uncomfortable anymore. So that's how I mean, it's not like you jump from here to there all of a sudden. It's just really one step at a time.
That's a really powerful visualization. When I think about that circle, it's like, well, wait a minute, I can do that. I can stretch the circle. And if I do that just a little bit every single day, then maybe I'll learn something new, and maybe I'll gain more of that confidence that I'm missing. And so from there, you really took that and ran with it, right? You went to the seminar, you trained your mind. And of course, I'm sure there was many other ways that you trained your mind, but it allows you to put yourself in a position to take action and be uncomfortable, right? So talk to me about what was that first action and maybe the early steps of those action steps?
So the first thing with real estate, so the very first thing was that I was deciding whether I should continue with a very stable job or jump into real estate. I was actually offered a job offer from a very big company and very stable job as a financial analyst. Literally, she was on the phone. It's like, hey, you got the job. Are you going to move forward before we give you that employment letter? And I'm just like, oh, crap. I need to decide whether I should do real estate or this. And I said to her, I think I really have to try this other, real estate. As an HR person, it's like, what are you talking about? Right. As if like, I need her to give me assurance. She was like, tell me, do you want it or not? And I'm just like, sorry, I have to try this. If I don't make it, I will come back, and will you still be willing to accept me? Of course, they're not going to promise me, but I just took that leap of faith as like, I'm going to try it, knowing that for the next few months, I'm not going to have a stable paycheck. That was the very first step in terms of my real estate life, to decide to have a stable paycheck or this. Honestly, probably for the next 2 years, I wasn't really making much money at all. But that is still the best decision I have made for my career. I had family. And you know what? When you make these decisions, unfortunately, your family and friends, they are most likely not the most supportive sometimes. They would be starting doubting. It's like, what is she thinking? Why wouldn't she like maybe do this part-time and have a stable paycheck? My family would tell me like, why don't you just go find a job? But I believed in it so much, and I loved it so much that I continued. I just like, you know what, I know if I don't give up, because again, if you give up, that means you fail, right? But you don't give up. You keep learning from your own mistakes. I don't care how long it's going to take, but I want to make this work. And that's what I did. And glad that I never gave up. I never went back to my, corporate world. And I love every day of my life. I kept thinking about like, I don't feel like this is my job. This is really my lifestyle, something I love to do.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. And I know many of the listeners can as well. I recall leaving my corporate job as well and stepping out and taking a leap of faith and having no guarantees, but, just that belief and that courage in myself that I could find a way, that I would do whatever it takes to succeed. And I feel like that is the prerequisite, right? And the recognition that you can and will expand your comfort zone and you can become comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's a skill in itself as well. But when you got started, were you buying foreclosures? Is that what you were doing originally?
So as a matter of fact, the first one wasn't even a foreclosure, but
okay.
The first deal I did was actually no money down deal. At the time, there's all these guru teaching you how to do no money down and all that stuff. And it's funny, I found my first property on a newspaper, and then somebody just said to me, "It's like, who buy properties from newspaper? You're not that old." I'm like, "Oh well, I did."
That's amazing.
And then that was in Texas. And I bought something in Texas, never seen it before. I mean, honestly, that was probably not the smartest move at the time. And I used a listing agent to buy the property. And the good thing about that one is, like, again, no money down. And then I actually got some money back at closing. So I felt like, my gosh, I'm learning. I'm doing what they've been pitching to me, right? And I was so proud of myself. But because of the fact that I used a listing agent, there's so many things that he didn't tell me. And I learned really huge lessons after I closed, finding out all these stuff about the property. And at the time, my husband was just kind of like, "What did you get ourselves into?" But
yep.
Yeah. So, however, we still, until now, today, we still have that first property because it's almost like cool. Now it's stabilized. Everything is great, but it took years before we could stabilize that property.
So that was a single family rental?
It was a duplex.
A duplex. Okay. Got it. So you bought the duplex and you're like, wow, I'm in the game. You made tons of mistakes, like we all do, by the way, on our first few deals. And you continue to make, I know I continue to make mistakes to this day. And obviously, hopefully they're a little bit smaller than when we got started. But talk to me, where did you go from there? I mean, obviously now you've grown into serving a huge client base and really doing what you do in the Bay Area now and being a broker and also being an investor across the country. But talk to me about where your trajectory took you from there.
Well, from there, when I found out that I didn't know what I was doing, I really but I joined these boot camp to learn from other investors. I was going to investment clubs every weekend just to surround myself by all these people. And then I went with a group of investors to Kansas City, and I, again, study the heck out of this one neighborhood, know it by the street name, even I've never been there, I know their zip codes, everything. And so I started flipping. I would buy small properties and then rehab and flip and then refinance, the BRRRR strategy. And I loved it. It's like every time I walk into a rundown house, I was like, I love that smell.
That's awesome.
And it just started doing more and more. And then I had friends, knowing that I was actually in a mortgage business here in California. But then I started having friends ask me, "Can you help me with purchase then, since you love looking at homes for yourself or investment?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But I never thought I would be a good realtor at the time because I'm really bad with directions. I don't know where's east, west, and thank God for GPS. So that's how I started into becoming a realtor for our friend. And however, and I also realized that I really didn't know a lot of things. So I had a broker who wasn't very helpful. He didn't really know a lot either. So I had to learn. I started taking classes. I went to meet with other realtors. And I literally would be sitting in class, start cold sweating because I realized what I have done wrong before. And I found that I really didn't know what I didn't know. So I immersed myself into education, how to become a better realtor. If I were going to start helping my friends and families or other people to buy. But I only had like a couple of friends who used me, but I did not start my business through my own circle. Most people knew that I just started. Most people didn't really want to use me. So I really had to go out of my network outside to start building my business that way. So I wasn't one of those people like, hey, start with your sphere of influence. My sphere of influence at the time didn't really trust me. So I really had to go out and find work, talk to a lot of investors first. That's how I started my realtor business, is helping investors.
The level of perseverance that you have sustained along your path is just so remarkable. And because every new endeavor that you took on was a bit of a mountain to climb. I mean, you talked about the amount of education that was required, the amount of sacrifice that you had to take to learn how to be a proper investor, how to, have a return on investment on your deals and to make them successful, go to Kansas City and learn all the different streets. And you were like me, I'm very directionally challenged. I mean, my wife makes fun of me like crazy. It's like, I can't figure out how to get to the grocery. And she's like, are you serious? Like, what is your deal? You're putting this in the GPS. So you and I, it's like, we have our deficiencies, but we do whatever it takes. And you have been so strong in terms of continuing to do whatever it takes and building your business as a broker. It's like, well, the people didn't trust me, so I had to find new people. And it's just, wow, the example that you've set is amazing. Could you talk to me a little bit about where self-reflection has kind of played a part in your journey as well? Because it almost seems like, well, it's just action, action, action. But I'm imagining that it's not all action. It hasn't all been just educate, grow, try, be uncomfortable. Could you talk to me a little bit about self-reflection for you?
Oh my God. That's actually one of the biggest thing about me is like, I'm constantly doing self-reflection. And so, there's always challenges for everybody. And again, my challenges is not like bigger or smaller than anyone else. I feel like we need to recognize that we all have challenges. We consider, as a woman, it's hard. And yes. So for example, when I was doing real estate investments, doing flipping, I had to talk to contractors, but then they basically didn't really take me seriously. They actually called me, oh, you're a drama queen. When I asked for a certain standard, I needed to have a certain way of doing things. Then I pull in my husband, who was not even in real estate. I was like, hey, can you ask these questions, do these things? All of a sudden they treat him completely different. Because my husband's like from the military, the way he talks is very, firm. And so I noticed those difficulties, and I feel like, okay, I can leverage someone else. I'm not going to be like here crying to you and say like, you need to respect me, Yes, you do. Don't get me wrong. You absolutely do. But I need to move on, and then I will leverage someone else to help me, complete certain things. And I feel like that's where I started to learn in every step of my career, of my family life. Everything is about how to leverage and recognizing your own weakness or something that is not going in my advantage. Then I would have someone else to help me where I'm not able to, I'm deficient on. As an example, I'm a very big idea person. I know what I want to do. I can, but then if you ask me to like be very systemized and a checklist and all that, I'm not that person. I need someone else to do that for me. So I learned that my very best friend, she's a checklist person. She has her task list. She's going to check up everything. So she helps me on that in terms of the system. I just think we all need to learn about what our weaknesses are. And that's not a bad thing because no one has no weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses. You just need to amplify your strengths and then have someone else to help you with your weakness.
I could not agree more. And we're the exact same way, by the way. It's, I'm a big picture thinker, and I need people to help me figure out the details and execute on those details and stay systematized and process oriented. And so it's important to know thyself, right? But the self-reflection, the self-discovery process, are there particular questions that you ask yourself, or is there a process that you go through, or is it maybe just more so taking some time to reflect on what's going well and what's not going well?
It took time, but then I remember that one thing that I did, and it gave me such a big, clarity of who I am, is doing the DISC personality test.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yes. And because again, went back to me and my best friend, she's helping me with my real estate. We work well together. We were helping each other out because we were having kids, and I'm just like, I can't do everything by myself. And I also moved to a new city from LA to San Jose. So I recruited her to help me out. She didn't know how to do real estate. And so we worked really well together, but we butted head. We kept butting head. I was like, why are you this way? And then she'd be like, why are you this way? And then we did this DISC personality test. We're absolutely opposite, complete opposite. And then we studied it. I was like, holy cow, that's why we work so well together, but that's why I don't get you. And then from then on, every person I bring into my team, I have them take a DISC personality test. I would now know what their weaknesses are. And I would now know whether their personality would fit into our culture or not. Because if somebody is too big of a D, it's going to clash with me. I'm not a big D, I'm a medium D, but still I can't have somebody too high of a D within the team, and it would ruin the culture of our team. So I have everybody take the DISC personality test now.
That's so good. I'm imagining you're a high I, right? And then your second is D. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, a higher I, but I'm not super high. I'm not one of those like walk into a party, it's like, hey, look at me. I'm very shy, actually. I'm very good one-on-one. But when I'm in the big networking setting, I all of a sudden just like shrink. I just like, I'm afraid to look at people in the eyes. A lot of people are surprised about that, about me on that, because they thought, I thought you're a really big networker. I was like, I push myself to go to these networking events because I know that's good for me. But literally, I could not do eye contact with anyone. I wait for people to come and talk to me, then I can talk to them. That's one of the uncomfortable situations for me that I keep pushing myself to be more comfortable. And I didn't let that stop me to not go to these places, because I know these networking events are really important for me.
Yeah, it's another example of, well, I just got to do what it takes, and what it takes is building relationships. And that may not feel comfortable to you, but it's better than the alternative. The alternative is, well, making a business that's not successful, right? And not having those relationships. What else? How else are you expanding that circle? Are there other things that come to mind
that I'm not good at and I have to keep expanding?
Yeah.
So I want to say, I'm not trying to sell my book, but writing, as I told you that I wrote a book last year, 2021. And I did not start reading until I was about 22 years old after I came here. And reading is always kind of a challenge for me. But I do read. And writing a book, holy cow, that was something extremely, extremely uncomfortable for me. It took me a long time to do. And I think this is one of the things. It's like, I want to share my story so badly, starting from, I want to share with my kids. I want one day, what if I'm not around anymore? Do they have something, physical that they can hold in their hand and say like, hey, I want to share the story of my mom with their kids or whatever, right? So I pushed myself to do this, wrote this book. And and I think that's one of the things. Now I'm so happy. I'm so proud of this. Can I do it again? I don't know, but then at least I know I did it already. And I think if I really have the time and the energy again, I would definitely do it. It's not easy for me to do something like this.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy for anyone. In fact, some of the authors that I appreciate and admire the most, they talk about how hard it is to write a book. And What a phenomenal achievement to have written your book. And of course, we'll put links in the show notes as to where the listeners can find Power to Change Lives by Helen Chong. And, I know that it's amazing because it really dives into your story, right? And a lot about what we've talked about today, but also what you're so inspired about sharing with so many others. So I'm excited about that, but I just appreciate you, Helen. And I'm excited I want to learn a little bit more before we dive into the rapid fire section of the podcast, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
You work with so many investors, right? So many folks that are doing big things, that are achieving financial freedom. And I love your tagline too. It's create financial independence through real estate, one client at a time. And so if you think about your experience, not only as an investor yourself, but working with prolific investors in the Bay Area and beyond, really all across the country, folks that are making investments, that are, setting goals, achieving goals. Talk to me about what are some of the glaring patterns that you've observed with some of the most successful investors that you've worked with, and then also maybe some that are still on their way. Could you talk to me about the differences?
So the most successful clients I have, they are very smart. Don't get me wrong. They're very, very smart, very successful careers, but they do listen. They go back to the humility. They do their own research, but they also listen to your advice. What I find, and they have built starting from a condo. And that's what I'm really proud of our company, is that we help so many clients buying their first place is just a condo, all the way to owning apartment buildings, right? And that to me is such a satisfaction to see that, because although some of our clients are already successful in terms of their career, where they are, but they worked really hard towards that, and they really want to leave something behind for their kids, for their the next generations. So I know it's not something they take advantage of. They worked hard towards it. And I'm part of that journey with them. Now, there are also, we talk to so many investors, and everybody was like, oh, I love that idea to have financial security. Then they start doing a lot of research online. They think they know it all. They make their own decision. But again, I want to remind these people is that, remember, we do this full time. We look at properties. We deal with this literally full time every single day. We handle hundreds, if not 1,000 transactions, looking at them. Maybe they may not close, but then we actually look at so many transactions every year. So this is literally what we live and breathe, right? When you're reading something and watching something on the internet, something on the East Coast, on Kentucky, whatever, does not apply in California, or vice versa. And then learning is different from doing. So I really think that the biggest obstacle for some of the investors is that they think they know it all, and they're not willing to listen and then learn from the expert. The client that we have helped, they learn, they listen, they do their own research, but they also realize that, oh, okay, I may not get all the full picture on the internet. This is what the reality is. There's always a gap from the internet and the reality, and you need to recognize that. We have so many clients who say like, no, but this is what I learned. This can be done. I'm like, no, it cannot be done. You can try. And they would try, and then they come back like, okay, maybe that was a waste of time. I'm like, yeah, but I know if you don't do it yourself, you don't try it yourself, you wouldn't have believed me.
Yeah, knowing isn't doing. And there's such a big difference in putting things in action than feeling like you understand something from a conceptual standpoint. I think that's really, really interesting. And I also find like your commitment to education on, hey, here's what's happening in the marketplace, to be really insightful as well. No matter if you're in the Bay Area or if you're in other parts of the country or other parts of the world, I would recommend a listener to go check out Helen's YouTube channel, because you have some awesome stuff on, hey, housing market updates. And I think that stuff is important because everything's interrelated. Whatever is happening in one market, could impact what happens in another market. And I think it's important to understand those demand dynamics and all of these things that you share on a regular basis. So we'll put a link in the show notes as where the listeners can find that, because I could spend hours asking you questions about that, where we could really delineate and understand those patterns so that we can make better decisions. But give me a real quick sense, if you don't mind, what are some of the most important decisions that investors need to make when they are creating or expanding their real estate portfolio? What have you found to be the most important?
I think the proper analysis and also really finding a good team member. The way we work, for us working with our clients, we do so much analysis. You and I were both CCIM, so I do using a lot of CCIM analysis. It's one of the most in-depth, and every time I do that, the buyers that we're working with, they're like, "Oh my God, that is like one of the most in-depth analysis that we've seen." And also working with a really good team member, because unfortunately, and this is something I hate to admit, is that real estate have this bad reputation that, oh, they just wanted to make a buck, right, out of me doing the transaction. But you need to find somebody who actually want to keep telling you, no, this is not a good investment. No, this is not a good investment. No, this is not a good investment. This is a great investment. You got to take action now. And that's what we do. I would say, we say 90% no to our clients, like, no, this is not good. And then finally we found something like, oh my gosh, you cannot miss this opportunity. So find that team member who can tell you the truth. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. And you are creating transformational relationships as a result, not just transactional. And I think that is so powerful. And I just admire you, Helen. I really do. And this is such a fun conversation. I could do it all week long, all day long, and keep going. So we're going to have to do part 2 and part 3 at some point in the near future. But Helen,
gosh, thank you.
Your story has inspired me. It's inspired so many to, take their perseverance up a notch, to allow themselves to expand beyond their comfort zone, because I think our dreams live on the other side of our comfort zone. And so with that said, Helen, I want to transition into our rapid fire section of the podcast. It's called the Rare Air Questionnaire. It's all about being uncommon. It's about being willing to be courageous. It's about being willing to have a dream, visualize that dream, and step into that, and also reflect and refine your process. And so I'd love to ask you a few questions here. If you had to point to 2 or 3 of the most impactful books that you've ever read over the past few years, what would those be and why? You mentioned you started reading at 22. So I'm sure you've read many, but are there any that come to mind?
Well, I did read many, not as much as some people probably, but so there are a couple books that really come into my mind. One is called Millionaire Mind. That is interesting. This book, the way it talks about, it's not just about making money. It's just like what we said in the beginning, is that success is not just about making money. Success is about a lifestyle. It's about relationship, your family. Be happy. Just be happy. Are you happy? I can make a lot more money, but if I don't have a good relationship with my husband and my kids, I'm not going to be happy. So that Millionaire Mindset, that book is great. It's by Thomas. Oh gosh, I need to think about the name. It's Thomas J. Stanley. And I love that book. I feel like that was one of my first few books that I read. And then another book was when I was in labor, giving birth. I was reading this Emerging Real Estate Market book by David Landau. And I loved it mainly because, I love the book because it taught me how to find markets in any real estate cycles and then find emerging markets. And it clicked. And then that's how I've been investing since. But at the same time, of course, it helped me to not think about the pain during the labor. So I love that book. And Blink. Blink is a great book by Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, I love the fact that there are a lot of decision making or impact is through a blink of an eye, things that can impact so much, and how you didn't know that can really instill into your mind afterwards. So yeah, those are probably the 3 books that I remember most.
It's so interesting. And it's a pattern that I've observed as well, is when I ask folks like you who've been so successful as investors, what they're reading and what's been most impactful, a lot of it has to do with mindset and how they're understanding how their mind works and how they can expand the capacity of their mind, because this is our most powerful tool. And so I love that. And we'll put links in the show notes as to where the listeners can find those books. And it also, you reading that book, The Emerging Real Estate Markets During Labor, that blows my mind. And it tells me so much about you. It tells me all I need to know about you, Helen. That is so fun. If you had to point to the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis, Helen, what would that be and why?
The biggest way to elevate my business or anyone?
Your life on a daily basis.
Well, honestly, I feel like I just practice my mindset, just how to be positive all the time. I went from quite negative, and a low self-confidence. And I feel like me helping, even including my children, tell them storytelling to change their mindset. Kids not going to listen to you to tell them, you got to do this. You tell them stories and then share with them and how it have changed someone else's life, not just my life. And they might not, you might not think that they're listening to you, but then they will remember when they grow up. And it's like, oh, do you remember you told me this one story before? I think that's what happened to me when I was younger. My dad loved telling, more of philosophy type of talk, very boring during dinner time. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's just that again. But now I grew up, I was like, I remember this is what you told me. I remember this and that. And don't think your words it means nothing. Kids, something will stick in their head and it takes them for the rest of their life. And that's how our words, their mind, shape their lives in the future.
That makes me really excited because I'm excited to welcome twins next month. And I'm like, I want to share them all the stuff that we're talking about today.
You're
going
to start whispering to their ears, like, I'm brainwashing you guys.
They're going to be rolling their eyes for like 20 years. And then one day they're going to be on a podcast and they're going to say the same thing that you just said. Exactly. So there you go. That's amazing. Helen, what's the biggest way that you elevate others around you?
Right now, I love that part of it, doing something like this. And I do my monthly webinar, and I just want to educate people and also change your mindset. One of the book that I wrote is called Power to Change Lives, to let people know that you have the power to change your life. And again, it's not if I can, I just want to share the design of the book. It's amazing. Yeah, your life is a maze. And here's everybody is looking for a home. The home, what does it mean? It's not just real estate. It's about your heart. You feel like you're home. I feel like I'm home now and here in the United States, where I wasn't born here. I came here alone. I don't have family members here besides my own family now that I built, but I feel like home here. So this maze, there are obstacles there, but you are the one who hold the power to knock down all these obstacles and go home. So this book is really, I think, hopefully I can do more of this to help elevate other people through their mindset, when they're down, they feel like they have the power to get their life back.
Helen, my goodness. I mean, you've changed so many lives today. You've changed my life today. I just want to acknowledge you for being courageous, for doing whatever it takes, for continuing to challenge yourself and other people around you and educating other people and, just not settling. And I just think that that's such an amazing example that you've set, Helen. I just really, really appreciate you. Is there any parting thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with Elevate Nation today?
Oh my gosh, I think I said a lot. I just know that we can always learn from each other. My one thing I really wanted to say is that, Tyler, you had no idea before we even started talking here, or before we even had a full conversation. I was watching your website. I was like, this guy, I feel like I get this guy. Like what you were doing is something I'm like really admire and really look forward to. And that's why this podcast, I've been so excited to be talking to you and going in depth about how we think and what we do and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you. I really want to say thank you for being such a great role model.
Well, thank you for your friendship, Helen. And I can't wait to continue our friendship and continue to learn together. But tell the listeners where they can find you and learn more about what you do.
Well, you can go to my work website will be haylengroup.com, HAYLENGROUP.com, or you can go to my book website. It's called powertochange.lives.com, where you can find links to buy my book or a Kindle. I'm working on an audiobook this year, and that's one of my goals this year. And I'm translating it to Chinese so that my parents actually can read them.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
That is so cool. Well, Helen, thanks again for being on the show. And I look forward to part 2 of our discussion, maybe part 3 at one time. But I'm wishing you the best, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Elevate Nation. My goodness. What an amazing story with Helen Chong. And, just her background is just so inspiring. I think I mentioned that 5 times throughout the episode. And hopefully you're not rolling your eyes at me at this point, but I can just tell you that people like Helen are people that, inspire me to get out of my own way, because there's times where I think my challenges are insurmountable. I'm sure you feel the same way, but, put it in perspective and you think about the challenges and the obstacles that she's been able to overcome and continues to overcome. I mean, her story is just getting started in many ways, and she's continuing to raise the bar. She's continuing to elevate herself and other people. And so there's so much that we can do ourselves. And so that's where we are now. And what I'd love to challenge you on is I'd love to challenge you to find what are your top 1, 2, or 3 key distinctions or takeaways from this episode. I'd like for you to really think about, well, what is it that I can go ahead and apply today? Maybe it's the way that I think. Maybe it's a mindset technique, right? Maybe it's a perspective, or maybe it's a strategy. Maybe I can go ahead and take action. Maybe I can build my team. Maybe I can be a little bit more humble and ask more questions. What would you like to apply today? And I'd love for you to go ahead and discuss this with someone else as well. Share this episode with a friend, but also have discourse with them. What was it that you learned or were inspired by most from this episode? What was it that surprised you most about Helen's background and about her story and about her success and what she's been able to do? And how does that relate to your own story? Because guess what? We're all on a journey. We are all on a journey, and your journey is just getting started as well. If you believe that's the case, your success, your growth, your potential is right in front of you. And it comes down to your beliefs, it comes down to your habits, it comes down to your actions. So I want to encourage you to take massive action today, because ultimately knowledge is only potential power. The real power is in taking action, taking massive action. Thank you so much for listening to Elevate today. And we look forward to seeing you soon. And until then, Elevate Nation, thank you so much. We will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit elevatepod.com.